Good afternoon. It's great to be here, and I'm great to see all of you here. I promise not to make this a dry academic lecture. If I can make this work. So can we talk business for a little bit? This doesn't work for me, does it? Sorry, technical issues. Is that it? Did I do it? Okay, now I can see myself. So what if today you were given a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity, and it is a great investment opportunity, and let me tell you a little bit about it. It has been growing for the last 20 years. It will continue to grow double digits in the foreseeable future, and it will deliver above market return on investments at least for the next 10 years. It will be the last meltdown. If everything else fails on Wall Street, this will be the last thing to go down. And there is a good chance that even if everything fails at Wall Street, this investment will continue to give you good return on investments. Would you be interested to know a little bit more about that? Okay, so I will tell you about it 16 minutes into this presentation because I've been given 18 minutes. In the meantime, let me talk about BAM, Business's mission, and let me tell you and show you about two different BAMs that I've experienced to work with or have played a role in. And so let me just go there. So the first is in the town of Yushu. Yushu is a town that is on the Tibetan plateau. It's about 13,000 feet above sea level. It sits in a valley with many hills surround it. April last year, it was the epicenter of an earthquake. And the earthquake flattened the town. At least 80% of the buildings have been condemned. And about 10 to 20,000 people died, and about the same number of people were injured. It's hard to get accurate numbers about how many people died because these are Tibetans, and they are nomads, and they herd yak for a living. So a lot of these people are not registered. So about that number of people died and were injured. On the next day, the Premier Wen Jiabao arrived in Yushu to personally help with the rescue work. The president, Hu Jintao, was in Brazil at that time, but he cut short his trip, and 3 days later, it was in Yushu as well. April 21st, 2010 was declared a National Day of Mourning. This was a fairly serious and significant event last year. 3 months after this, I was asked to join with a group of a board of a BAM, of a business board, that had an operation in Yushu. Yushu was, this was the last BAM in this valley. And they manufactured yak carpets. And English teachers and all the other Christians in the valley has been kicked out since 2008 because of the Olympics. They were cleaning out a lot of the visas. And this was the last BAM that was left in the valley. And they lost everything. All their assets were flattened in the earthquake. They have to rebuild buildings, and they have to rebuild machinery. So this group was there to assess what the opportunities are and where they should go with this enterprise. Yushu is the heart of darkness. It is one of the most evil places I've ever been to. It is the center of a reform sect of Tibetan Lamaism. And Tibetan Lamaism, because there's some Hollywood types who sort of mess around with it, you tend to get this impression that this is a harmless superstition, people who meditate and chant. It isn't. Especially this particular sect of Tibetan Lamaism. It is wicked and evil. It has held this plateau in bondage since time immemorial. There are only two types of spirits in Tibetan Lamaism. Those that are evil and that we should be afraid of, and those that are malicious that needs to be appeased. Instead of man being the crowning glory of creation, we are parasites. We are intruders into this world, and we are of no value. And that's how they view the world. And this sect has been holding this group of people bondage forever. Even though they have a veneer of modernity, they are still very, very much under the spell of this sect. And for those of you who are disturbed or concerned about what happened in Penn State and other places like that, what I've heard from the stories of what happens to the young novices here would make that look like a walk in the park. It is weak. It is really wicked. And on the plateau, as I walk around, the presence of evil is palatable. And I'm not one who usually use those words, but that certainly was a sensation I got when I was there. All the temples were destroyed in this earthquake. All the temples were destroyed. And there seemed to be a tremendous opportunity for the gospel there. The first day I was there, we lived in these tents because there was no buildings to live in. The first day I got there, we lived in these tents, and I couldn't sleep because of all this racket that was going on in the next tent over. And I went over to investigate what was going on, and it was a group of Chinese Christians from Sichuan. And so I was delighted to find Christians on the plateau. So I got to know them over the week. We were a terribly provisioned group. We had no food, we had no water, we were terrible. I came from the Grand Hyatt Beijing before this trip, where my toilet seat was heated. And here we are, we show up with our wheelies and no food. And so this group of brothers and sisters actually saved our lives because they fed us every day. So this group of Christians who were the recipient of the generosity of overseas Christians in the Sichuan earthquake of 2008, as soon as they heard about this earthquake, they ran over. And they said they were going to be helpful. And so they've been there for 3 months. And so they set up their tents. There were Christian logos on their tents. And they are very useful in the whole rescue process. And they did everything that needed to be done. And they were just really wonderful. And every night they had Bible studies and evangelistic meetings. Very loud singing and evangelistic meeting and open proclamation of the gospel. And in an environment like that, nobody's going to stop this group, which is really useful. I've got to say also, by the way, in 2008, one of the worst earthquakes, in China happened. The first group on day one that landed in Sichuan actually was a Christian aid group called Heart to Heart, based in Olathe, Kansas. And they were there delivering medicine, and they delivered their medicine and took off, and really did a lot of good work in a very low-key manner. So I was very proud of them. Anyway, I talked with this group of Christians that were in the valley, and they told me wonderful stories of how in the three months of work, they were able to convert relief workers, soldiers, engineers, doctors, and nurses. I asked them the next question. Of this, how many were locals? How many Tibetans did you convert? Not one. Not one. The temples were all condemned. All around this valley where Yushu sits, around all the peaks are all these Tibetan temples that are in ruins. We went around looking at these temples. And one of the pastors in the group said, we should be claiming these high grounds. We should be praying for this valley from these high grounds. Why don't we have teams of prayer warriors that come in here? The prayerful recommendation of this group, and as I did a somewhat in-depth assessment of what the chances of success are, the prayerful recommendation after this visit was that this BAM should close down. This BAM should close down because it was under-resourced. The Christians that were there working were not trained properly. They have little experience in what they were dealing with, which is very, very blatant wickedness and evil. And they were not encountering any success. And what we went back and told the group that says, unless you're really willing to finance this properly, send in leaders, send in groups to pray thoughtfully over this enterprise, we're not going to succeed. And why we have this presence here that's not been doing any good, and if we continue to do what we're doing now, we're going to get the same results as we've been getting all along. Let me tell you about another enterprise. And this is a map of AIDS in China. And the darker the color, the more severe the AIDS epidemic and HIV positive epidemic. Now right there in the bottom is this dark patch. That is Yunnan, the province in Yunnan. And everything that I've been told about Yunnan is that this is they're covering up the numbers. The AIDS and HIV epidemic there is horrendous, and it is epidemic. There's probably more people that are HIV positive in Yunnan than anywhere else in China. Right across the border from Yunnan is Burma, Myanmar, and there's a jungle town by the name of Nambang. Nambang is, the jungle borders are somewhat porous, so it's sort of technically on the Burma side of the jungle, but you see a lot of Chinese crossover. And here again is another heart of darkness. And let me tell you a little bit about my visit to Nambang. Nambang is just if you can think of terrible things and illegal things that you would encounter, it's going on there. So the first thing I saw driving into Nambang is that here's this farm that farm bear bile, and this is a very cruel way of extracting an ingredient for Chinese medicine. Bears are caught in the wild, and then they're put in these cages for between 10 to 20 years, and there's a catheter that is stuck into them to extract bile. It's a very painful process. Bears have been known to self-mutilate, and mother bears are known to kill their cubs so that they won't have to live through this situation. And so this is a heart of bear bile farming. In the marketplace, trading of endangered species. Anything you can dream of that is endangered, they got it there. You can trade there. This is not the worst of it. At night, Nambang is comparable to Sodom and Gomorrah. It is horrible. Gambling, drugs, weapons, and then the most depraved form of child prostitution. It is a horrible, horrible, evil place. And yet, there are these great young people asking questions about the kingdom. Young people who are optimistic, who want to know about God. Young people who want to know the truth. So, for the northern Shan state of Burma, a country that really that we should all have a burden for the gospel. For the Yunnan border provinces, a dark place where there are so many issues, and for all the tribal community in the Golden Triangle, this is the known Christian presence there. There they are. Solomon is 32 years old. He has when I met him, he had 3 months of field experience. Bu King, the girl on the right, is 26 years old. She graduated from Bible school in Thailand. And Lu Mei, in the middle, is 20 years old. She has basically an equivalent of an associate degree from a Bible school in Thailand. That's the team. Why do we send children in to do battle for us? Why do we equip so poorly our front line? A generation ago, we would send our best and our brightest. If C.T. Studd was alive today, he would be a Rhodes Scholar. He would win the Heisman Trophy. He would be the best of his generation. And he also went to a not-so-bad school called Cambridge. When a generation ago, we would send out the best and the brightest of our people. This is what we send out today. This is what we send out to do battle for us. So I want to talk about BAM. How do we make BAM work? How do we stop these types of fights? Send the best. You know, we have to send the best that we have today. We have to send the best of our brightest, the best and brightest of our generation. We have to equip and train and bring the best talents that we have together, and we send them on this because we know the job we ask them to do is tough. We should prepare for spiritual warfare. We should prepare people to deal with the blatant presence of evil. You know, we send people into these unreached territories where Satan, what has been Satan's stronghold for all these years. Why do we expect that he will hand those over to us freely? So we need to prepare people for spiritual warfare. And then it has to be a team effort. You know, it has to be teams. You know, I teach supply chain operations, and supply chains are what wins. You're as good as your weakest link. So you have to have a team effort. You have to provision teams to go out with enough resources, with enough training, so that they don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from. They don't have to worry about their career track. It disturbs me, and it should disturb all of us, that in most of our churches, we have more people on coffee and on greeting duty than we have for the entire northern Shan state of Burma. I mean, our resources are put in the wrong places. Support is not only financial, spiritual, emotional, tangible, but it has to be practical. That's how we win. It's as simple as that. And expect opposition. It's going to be there. I was discipled a long time ago as a young Christian by David Aidney, one of the China inland missionaries. You know, when David and Ruth Aidney sailed for China in 1934, they were not expecting to come back. You know, this is it. This was not a gap year for him. He was not going to China to find himself. This is a very serious enterprise as they go on. And OMF follow along that tradition by making sure that if you are an OMF missionary, you get 2 years of language training, 3 years of Bible school, and then if you're good enough, maybe they'll send you out. And that's the type of seriousness we need to think about and when we think about sending people out. One of my Sunday school teachers is Gladys Aylward. You know, she of the movie of the same name, the Inn of Seven Happiness, which she is about this tall. And you know, I met her as a preteen, and even then, as she was less than 5 foot tall, I know this was a lady that I'm not going to mess around with because she is tough. And we need to have these types of characters and these personalities going out for us. So it's we should look at these as lifelong vocational calls. We should send the best, and we should equip them so that they can be successful. Now, about that surefire investment that I talked about a little bit more than 16 minutes ago, if there's one slide that you should remember from this presentation, this is the slide that's coming up. This is the slide that should be burned in our minds, and this is the slide that we should leave with. And here it is. This is a slide, oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that better. This is a slide of the GDP of the world from the time of Christ to now, okay? It starts at year 0 and it ends now. And the bottom 2 columns, I'm sorry that you can't see it better. The bottom 2 columns, oops, sorry, I did something wrong. The bottom 2 columns, the dark red or brick color, that's China, and the column above that is India. And so it goes through the year 0 to now. 2 things you should take away from this slide. One, for the 90% of the last 2,000 years in the economy of the world, the 2 dominant economies of the world are China and India. They dominate, and they account for more than 50% of the GDP of the world 90% of the time. Even in 1900, at the height of the British Empire, China and India together produced more for the world than the United Kingdom. And then from 1900 to 1970, you might say that the 2 world wars bankrupted all the other traditional European economies, and that you see the ascent of the U.S. power as an economic power. You can also look at 1990 to 1970 as an anomaly. And so in 1970, in fact 40 years, 2 months from now, a fellow alum from my university, Richard Nixon, went to China, and from 1970 you see that that bottom brick color going straight up, that's what's happening. It is growing at double digits. From 1990, with the opening up of the Indian economy, you see the double-digit growth in the economic in India on that bar, and you can see this. I'm sorry you can't see this clearly, but you can see this on all the chart. Unfortunately, China is in yellow, but the bars are going in that direction. 20 years of double-digit growth means that you're going to be the dominant economic power, and it's in our lifetime. So for those of you who are young in this audience and who have your career is measured in the next 50 years, this is for you. And this chart also tells us one thing. So I'll give you another example from my old company. If you look at Wal-Mart, my old company, a lot of people don't know this, but since 2008 in Wal-Mart US, Walmart's been selling less and less stuff to fewer and fewer people. Since 2008, the last quarter is the only quarter it has a positive store for store. Walmart, yet the stock price for Walmart has been going up or flat throughout the recession. And in fact, if you've invested in Walmart stock, you're actually doing pretty well today. So how did that company deal with this? It dealt with it this way. It grew double digits. It continued to grow double digits in revenue in the United States, but it is triple digits in the international development. That's how it's been making up the difference. China went from 65 stores to 300 stores in the last 5 years. And it's an explosive growth. And if you don't think that makes sense, look at some of these other people that happen to be, that are in China these days and putting their money there. Follow the smart money. What does this all mean for us? Our traditional view of the world, the east-west view of the world, is dated. You know, all of our supply chains are optimized east to west. You make stuff in the east, you sell stuff in the west. There's not much, you know, we're not buying as much as we used to. Our view of the world should be much more connected. Our view of the world should be much more dynamic. And this opens up all this BAM opportunities for us, and for us to think about BAM in a completely different way. I mean, there are all sorts of new market opportunities for us because there are these multi-channel opportunities that are opening up. The whole online community buys things and spends in a completely different manner than bricks and mortars. This is tremendous opportunity for us to think about completely new models of access and new models of businesses. It's a new global marketplace. How are we capturing all this? The reason that we should be involved and think about this is that we have an under-resourced brothers and sisters in China who needs us because they're growing so fast. They need training. They need us to come alongside to help them and to partner up with them, to pray with them. All that I've talked about opens up access to this church. This is the intersection of the Se River and the Mekong River. I visited in Laos. I was in Laos, and there is this monument in Chinese. Basically, it's a monument to the unknown God. It was amazing for me to find that, you know. And, you know, when Samuel raised a stone he called the Ebenezer to remind his people that you know, anytime you have problems, anytime you have concern, remember, look at the stone and be reminded that God is our help. Maybe this is the occasion, maybe this is the room that does that we begin to rely on God and remember that God is our help. We need to send the best. We need to prepare them for spiritual warfare. We need to support them with a great team. What will they say of this gathering 10 years from now? What will they say we have done? Hopefully, our sons and daughters would say that this is where it all began. The race is on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Edwin. You might want to stay up there. I love the stories. Let's open it up for any questions from the audience.
Yeah. Was that useful, relevant, or did it speak to you? I hope it speaks to all of us. You know, it breaks my heart. Those stories breaks my heart. And being there, I tell you, was no fun. And so this is more than anything else a cry for us to be optimistic, to rely on God, and also to really look inside ourselves to see where our roles are in the world that God has put us in. So,
Edwin, question. You mentioned that our resources are in the wrong places, and I like your illustration, although it's sad, about more people helping with coffee than in certain parts of the world. What would you recommend? How do you motivate the body of Christ to, what are the factors that help them see the need and respond to that need in whatever way the Lord would lead?
Right. That's a great question. I think that the first step is, where does God want us? I've always think it's sort of like, and I'm thinking like an academic geek, it's always the XY axis of life, right? The XY axis of life is the deepest longings of your heart and the greatest needs of the world. Like where is that intersection? And we need to live there. And one of the things is to begin to start asking questions and begin to let God speak to us. Allowing God to answer in the way that God answers. As Sam Chang is sitting back there, Sam and I were speaking with another brother. We had coffee with another brother about 10 days ago in Hong Kong, and he was telling us about all these things that he sees and all the needs. And I think we told him, well, I think God is telling you all this so that you're going to go and do something about it. He said, oh, no, I don't want to do this. That's not what I'm gifted. That's not what I'm interested in doing. And I remember telling that Moses wasn't that interested either. Jonah wasn't interested in that either. Sometimes when we ask these tough questions, we may not like the answer that God gives us, but certainly God will answer us if we begin to listen to Him. And then I would say, open your eyes to the world. The world is a really wonderful place, full of, and it's changing so rapidly, and there are so many things going on. You need to begin to live and breathe and begin to see all that God is doing in the world, and from there will come excitement about what to do next.
By the way, this is Joe Plummer. She's substituting right now, but I'm going to let her read the next question.
We had a tweet come in, and might need a clarification on this question, but the question is, so what business in China are you offering?
What business in China are you offering? Look, I was just saying to somebody earlier, the worst thing you want to do is to spend RMB and earn US dollars these days. And so what you need to do is you begin to think about how can I actually begin to, because the RMB is appreciating so rapidly, right? So what you need to do is begin to earn something that is denominated in RMB. I think you need to go in and ask whichever community that God leads you, how can I serve you? How can I serve you? How can I be useful? What needs done, and how can I be of value to you? I think that's where you begin to ask that question, rather than, here I am. Does that make sense?
Another tweet, how are the academic institutions like Yale, Harvard, Wharton helping the Great Commission?
So I happen to work for all three of those organizations. I think we have to hijack that agenda a little bit. I think all these institutions are anxious because, one, U.S. as a military power is fine for the next 100 years. We have bigger ships and planes than everybody else. U.S. as a thought leader has diminished a lot globally. And then because of our politics and because of how we're beginning to look more and more inward in ourselves. And so there is a worry amongst U.S. Academic institutions about where do I even have a voice at the table? Do I have a seat at the table? And that is a genuine concern. Today, the thing that is of most value that U.S. exports is our intellectual property. And these big brand schools, if you will, still represents the best of our intellectual property. So we need to capture those opportunities under the guises of these institutions, but then we need to take, begin to take those agendas from these institutions and make sure those agendas serve the kingdom of God. So we need to be involved in these institutions. We need to help them through thinking through these issues, and we need to speak Christ into a lot of these global issues. I don't know, that's an academic answer.
We had another question being texted in. The question is, with China's government intervention or perhaps scrutiny, what are some of practical advice you would give to entrepreneurs who wish to start businesses or BAM businesses in China?
Right. Well, probably shouldn't start BAMs in China. We don't need another coffee shop, which seems like everybody wants to start a coffee shop. I think we need to, there's a community out there that needs our participation. I think we need to figure out how we can be useful in that community, rather than set up another cost center that we have to support because we're building our own system. There's so much opportunity. A friend of mine, a brother, has just been appointed the head of Google China. I mean, it was like, talk about it's good news and bad news. This is a great job. The bad news is this is the world's hottest potato you can imagine. But so here we have a brother in China struggling with censorship and how to be a Christian under the microscope in Christ. And I think we need to put ourselves in those situations. One of the things that I dealt with when I was at Wal-Mart was with issues around integrity and ethics, and be courageous about dealing with those things, and be smart about dealing with those things, and rather than thinking about do I start another BAM, maybe it's what efforts do I join that I can make more powerful and stronger in the process.
How have you seen Wal-Mart respond to the social issues, around the world, and how could others follow that example?
I can't speak for Wal-Mart, for sure. But here we have a somewhat controversial and somewhat misunderstood organization, right? The CEO is a Christian, and certainly is trying his hardest to be a responsible global citizen. But a bull in a china shop, nonetheless, in many instances. And the more brothers and sisters we can surround him with, I think the more opportunities he can be to be successful. So listen, I'm proud of the fact that one of the things I'm known in Wal-Mart is I'm the guy who fired more people than anybody in the history of Wal-Mart at one go. And I did. I fired 181 people in one day because they were cheating, because they were unethical, because they were taking bribes. So we have to stand up for stuff like that, right? Now, I'm not particularly brave or anything like that, but God puts us in those situations, and you take stands like that, and all of a sudden, I have these young men who come to my door in the office, and they begin to ask me things like, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this, but why do you take this position? And what motivates you? What drives you? And that, all of a sudden, it opens the door for the gospel, right? More than anything else. The world is looking at us. How do we behave?
You said that China needs training. How do we avoid transferring to them consumerism, or materialism, and other destructive Western concepts?
Right. I wouldn't even worry about those. I worry about KFC and McDonald's. There are 3,000 KFCs in China and 1,500 McDonald's in China, and obesity is first generation obesity as an issue. So we always export our worst stuff first, and we always export our vices first. I wouldn't worry about that as that much. You know, the way our whole framework needs to change a little bit. We are in a globalized economy, and this is a globalized world, and we have to compete with the best wherever they are and whoever they are. And so if we're not bringing the best thinking and we're not bringing the best practices, it's not going to go anywhere. So don't worry about that. The other thing too is I go back to this first ask the questions, how can I be useful, then observe, and then do something. But you know, spend some time being thoughtful about understanding what is going on locally and how you can speak into that and how you can be of value and be used in that environment. There's a lot of stuff in the West that is temporal and that we have sort of incorporated into our church. And I think that as you go out into the world, the great thing is that you begin to hold on to less and less. But what you hold on to more and more dearly, because those are the things that are really of value, right? And in that process it's God teaching us new things about Him. Right?
Do you see China as the next open door into the Middle East?
Ah, yes, it's back to Jerusalem movement. I don't know. Certainly, you know, I've spent some time in the Middle East and Africa. I see less Western baggage when Chinese are there to a certain extent. So there is an opportunity to support our Chinese brothers and sisters, and as opposed to some of the baggage that we bring with us from the United States. I think that may be an opportunity.
Here again, either these folks really want these books, or they're intrigued by your presentation, because we're getting a lot of different questions in.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't apologize. It's a compliment. As one who lives in Southwest China, this may be a little bit more of a request than a question, but you can comment on it. As one who lives in Southwest China, attempting to follow where God is leading, may I request that business people be proactive in coming along those in China who don't have a business background, and partner with them to be effective.
Right. Amen. I think there's a lot of opportunities to be partners, and the operative word is partners. These should be peer-to-peer relationships. We are not the great white hope to save the world, but we come alongside and support the church, and we help them because they're growing so fast and they're so strapped for resources, and they need so much in terms of theological training and all the other stuff that we take for granted in any church in the U.S. today. Those are the things that the church in China is lacking today. And make no mistake, after 30 years of persecution, this is a Chinese church. This is a church that is stripped of a lot of its Western veneer, and that's why that's why it's legitimate, and that's why it is sustainable. And it's a wonderful thing to worship with brothers and sisters as peers. But certainly there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner and help this church. There's 1 billion people there, you know, by the way, and so there's tremendous opportunity, and there will be 300 million middle-class Chinese, or Chinese coming into middle class in the next decade. That's more people than there are Americans. The largest English-speaking country in the world today is China, because there are more English-speaking Chinese than there are English speakers anywhere else in the world. This is tremendous opportunity. God has taken all the excuses out from us about not doing something, right? How much simpler can He make this? And so I think there's tremendous opportunities for us to, you know, we have been given so much. You know, I was in a setting in Shanghai with some house church leaders, and the most basic resource that was brought over, they were just basically in tears about how wonderful it is to have these rich resources. And I was thinking about, boy, this is stuff we take for granted every day. And so there's tremendous opportunities to be of service. But again, I say, send the best. Don't send leftovers. Don't send people that can't make it over here, or people that are not smart enough to make the grade here. We have to send the best, and we have to send the C.T. Studd and the David Aitneys of our generation. The front line's over there. It's not here.